What's up guys, and welcome back to Move Plus. Hope you're all keeping well out there. We're gonna get into this warm up. So the first minute of which is gonna be any cardio of your choice. We're gonna go with some step ups, which is gonna look like this. So just nice and straightforward, up and down on that for the first minute. The next 4 minutes are going to be 20 seconds on good mornings, and these will just be body weight good mornings, so just a simple hinge at the hips. 10-second rest, and then we go into 20 seconds of plate ground to overhead. So that'll be from floor up to lockout. Okay, again, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and those two things will just alternate back and forth for those remaining 4 minutes. Good to go? All right, starting in 10, so 1 minute of cardio of your choice, guys. You can pick whatever you want to do here. We are going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this one, guys, if you're doing the same thing as us, go for something low, something fairly easy, something that you can just keep continuous, and something that feels good on the body to just roll straight into. If you've been sitting still all day, maybe at a computer, or you've been driving, that sort of stuff, you haven't been moving around too much, we don't want to go anything too aggressive, like a really high, 24 or something like that. Try to go for something on the lower side, and just allow your joints and your muscles the time to just kind of heat up, get the blood flow going, get everything feeling good before we get into the fast and heavy and all that sort of thing. So we've got about 25 more seconds, and from here, guys, the next 4 minutes has that kind of Tabata setup, which is the 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off format. That'll be with the body weight good mornings and the plate ground overheads. 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So into the body weight good mornings, guys. So this one is real simple, but we do want to be specific about the body position, right? So all we're doing is just tilting over, but we want to make sure that the spine stays in a fixed position. So we are hinging at the hip joint itself. We're not rounding or curving the spine over. And resting. So 10-second break. We're going to go into the plate ground overheads now. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So as far as the hips go, guys, it's a fairly similar kind of position. We'll probably have the stance maybe a little wider, probably see a little bit more knee bend as we kind of come down to reach for the floor, but pretty much all the same there. We have that same feeling of the spine being fixed. I'm going to touch the plate to the ground at the bottom and then full lockout overhead. And resting. So another 10-second rest. We'll move back onto the good mornings. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So you really want to see those nice vertical shins. You can see that when Em does this, her upper leg is going to move a little bit, but the lower leg is going to stay pretty well still, which means the knees are going to stay still, and we just reach back into that hinge pattern. We're not letting the knees soften to go forwards. And resting. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So you'll notice that the angle of the plate will change from top to bottom. At the bottom, we're going to have it basically straight up and down. So we're reaching the top sort of lip of the plate for the floor, have thumbs pointed down. And then at the top, it's going to roll up to a flat position as our arms hit the lockout. And resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, if you find you've got really tight hamstrings, guys, maybe your mobility is not crash hot, something you're still working on, just go to where you can. We can see that Em's sort of getting pretty much down to almost like a 90-degree bend at the hip, which is ideally what the end game of this is. For you, you might be just going to like a 45 angle and just working on kind of isolating at the hip, resting for me, and that will get better and better over time as we kind of press and open up that mobility. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So looking at the overhead position now, guys, on the plate ground overhead, we want to see the head just slightly pop through. So it's a nice stacked position. So if you ever find when you're doing this that you can see your arms and you can see the plate, generally means that you're either reaching too far out in front or you're leaning back to hit that lockout position. And resting. Okay, we're going to go one more cycle of each of them. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Notice that Em's head will move with the body, so she's not craning the neck up as she comes down. She's actually going to be looking forwards at the top and then slightly downwards at the bottom there, so the whole spine fixes as one piece. And resting. Three, two, one, and go for it. So last section of the warm-up. Just going to keep that plate as a fairly close line up the front of the body. Make sure doesn't turn into a swinging motion. It's a pull into a press. So think of like a kind of a muscle clean and press or a muscle snatch kind of motion. And resting. Alrighty guys, so that is the warm-up done. Grab some water, have a little bit of rest, and we're gonna go into the move workout next. Alrighty guys, so we're gonna have a look at the move workout now. This part is 12 minutes long, and what we'll be doing is every 3 minutes for 4 rounds, we're gonna go through 20 alternating hang snatches, which is gonna look like this. So swing from between the legs, up to overhead, and then we change hands each time. 20 of those then rolls into 20 box step-ups. So setting ourselves up in front of the box, whole foot on the box, and then standing up nice and tall. And then remaining time out of each of those 3-minute blocks, you're gonna do as many Russian twists as you can. So this can be done with or without a dumbbell. Get into that V-sit position, and we go back and forth, right up to that 3-minute marker, and then you would start it again. So 4 cycles of that, and you're good to go. All right, starting in 10. So hang snatch up first. We are going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this one, guys, that hang position, we are looking at staying above knee height. And you might find with the position of the dumbbell as it swings down that the head of it might go slightly below knee height. Don't stress too much on that. It's more about where the hand is and where the handle is. Trying to keep that above knee height. And it will kind of almost resemble a little bit like a kettlebell swing where we have that kind of hinge and then drive through. But different to a kettlebell swing, it's more of a vertical pull straight up to overhead rather than a swing away from the body. So you want to try and keep it close. I always like to imagine there's a wall in front of me. So I'm going to hinge and then pull straight upwards. Now the lockout at the top, we want to see that head kind of just slightly poke past the head poke past the arm position there. So we're nice and locked out. Make sure it's not sort of just hovering out in front of us. All right, so 20 of those. We move to the box step-ups now. So we did a little bit of step-ups as our cardio choice in the warm-up. You might not have done that, but if you did, we were talking about going at a lower height to kind of ease into things. Once we get to the workout, you can decide to go a little higher with it. So if you have the option to, if there's a bench or some steps or something like that, you've got the ability to go a little bit more. We're in workout mode now, so this is where you can go a little bit more aggressive with it, make it a little bit more challenging. Now, there's not too much in the way of technique with this other than keeping our posture nice and tall and making sure that the whole foot ends up on the box rather than just the ball of the foot. We want to be able to feel like we can drive that heel down and get a nice strong stand up at the top and just alternating from right to left as we go through that. So once we hit 20, we've got just over a minute to go. We're going to get onto those Russian twists. So these might not necessarily be one big unbroken set, especially if you've got this much time left. You might do a couple of bursts of 20 or 30 reps. We're looking at that V-sit position. So it's knees and feet together, up off the ground. We're balancing on the top of our butt. Shoulders are up off the ground and just pivoting back and forth. So it's a rotation through the midsection, making sure that the head, shoulders, and dumbbells all kind of move together. Or if you're doing this body weight, it'll just be your hands together, going side to side. So either way, whatever you're doing this with, guys, you want to contact the ground just outside of the hip there. That way you can use that as like a marker. You know you're doing the full range of motion every single time. "20 seconds left. Okay, 15. So we'll probably start looking at getting ready for that snatch again soon. We've got about 10 seconds to go. So maybe going from there, getting ourselves ready to hit that 3-minute buzzer. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So really important, like some of the other movements we've done in the workout today with the good mornings and the RDLs, things like that, it's a straight back hinge position. So we move at the hip, not at the spine, and then we use that rapid hip extension to create that powerful drive up with the dumbbell. So almost making it feel like weightless once that arm takes over. It's just following the momentum up. Now, one thing that Em's doing that I really like is she's keeping the dumbbell in a neutral position, which is having the dumbbell kind of point sort of straight up and down that way versus going across the body. This just allows an easier swing between the legs. She doesn't have to go super wide to fit the width of the dumbbell through. It also makes for a more stable position at the lockout. If I am palm facing forward, my shoulder has a lot of freedom to kind of go back and forth, and I have to work harder to hold it still. Whereas if I go into that neutral position, it will kind of wind up that tension and get into a really nice solid position to finish. Okay, so 20 step-ups. And we're doing this one body weight, guys. If you want to go extra crazy with it, you can get a little bit of weight in there, hold in the front rack or suitcase style, whatever you want to do. Make it more challenging. We do want to try and keep the 20 unbroken. So if you wanted to go like full crazy with it, obviously don't go so heavy that you have to break up the 20. But anything up to that is fine. If you want to get a little bit of kettlebell or a weighted backpack or something like that, just make sure that 20 runs as one unbroken set. So we fit that time frame, that 3-minute window, we're allowing ourselves time to get all 3 movements out. Doing good, Em. All right, so very similar kind of time split to last time, which is good. It means she's got just over a minute to get some Russian twist out. Remember, small bursts of reps, a little bit of break in there every now and then, but just try and keep turning that scoreboard over. Now, if you find this really, really hard, guys, even if it's non-weighted, you're doing body weight, you still feel it quite hard to hold that position, put the heels down on the ground. So still got that same kind of positioning, but we want to maintain that lean back. That will just allow you a little bit more stability, kind of take the balance aspect out of it. And we still want to have that rotation though, so getting that nice kind of corkscrew feeling through the midsection. "30 seconds to go. Last 15. And we'll start getting ourselves ready soon for that next round. That's 2 cycles down, we've got 2 to go. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So back into the hang snatch. If you happen to be doing this workout at home with a kettlebell, guys, the hang snatch can be a little bit more technical. You have to do a little bit of a whip over at the top. So what you want to look out for if you're doing that is the smoothness of the finish, right? If I am turning that kettlebell over and it feels like it's clunking on my arm a lot, that's kind of your warning sign we need to smooth out that turnover. So you'll find that once the dumbbell gets to about head height, you're actually wanting to sort of decelerate but punch your hand past it. So the bell's going to float a little bit and you rotate it, pivoting it on the spot, and then you'll hit that nice lockout position. The dead giveaway that you're doing it right is that it'll just feel like it sits there, like it's always been there, and it doesn't feel like an impact at all. Dumbbells obviously the simpler option if you can go for that, guys. Does keep things pretty straightforward. Em's onto the box step-ups now. She's added that dumbbell in now. So this is where we can make things a little more challenging if you're wanting to. She's got just a single side, kind of suitcase style, but anywhere is fine. You can front rack it, you can goblet set up, you can set it on the back of the shoulders. Anything like that, as long as you're staying nice and stable. And obviously recommend balancing things out. You should do half of it on one side, switch the dumbbell for the other half, just to keep things nice and balanced. Doing a good job, Em. Nice. All right, heading down to the Russian twists. So common mistake with this one, guys, is moving the weight and moving your arms without your body actually doing any movement. We want to look at this midsection here where your abs are, your obliques in particular. They do a lot of your rotation work. So we want to think about the whole rib cage or that whole upper torso with the head, with the shoulders, with the weight, with the arms, everything moving side to side. rather than just keeping it still in the middle and the arms moving back and forth. "30 seconds. Last 15 seconds. All right, we'll get ourselves ready for the fourth and final cycle. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Hey guys, if you happen to be doing this with a loaded backpack, that's the at-home special MacGyvered equipment edition. Load a bunch of weight in there, or towels wrapped up, tin food, books, whatever you got in there, something to make it nice and heavy. What you might find is that doing a single arm version, this might be a little challenging. So what I suggest you do with that is actually getting both hands on there and doing kind of like a bucket setup. So it's more of a dual arm hang snatch rather than the alternating one. You might just find that single arm, the backpack might hang too low, it might hit the ground, that sort of thing. So feel free to kind of be flexible with it, adjust it as you need to, but we just want to see that nice hip hinge pattern and then a roll up to overhead with that nice explosive hip extension. All right, so moving back to the step ups for the last time. Now, if we look at the leg motion as she goes up and down on this, guys, she's going to keep the knee tracking with the toe, right? So wherever my toe points, which hopefully for this movement should be pretty much dead ahead, the knee is going to stay with that same direction. If you find that when you're stepping up, your foot is kind of just tweaked out a little bit, but that knee still want to kind of crash inside of it, fall inwards a little bit, try to get those two things to line up together. It's just going to be a nicer and safer motion on the knee because it is a hinge joint. We don't want to be rotating it off axis. I'm going to think about getting the joints to just glide as nicely as possible. She's keeping that nice tall posture, so even though she's added weight to it now, she's not allowing herself to kind of slump down, keeping it nice and tall. All right, so last piece of this, we've got about 1:10 left, and knock out as many Russian twists as we can. Nice, I'm doing good. Got about 45 seconds left. So this is a good idea, guys. With this one, have a little bit of padding underneath your butt. You're obviously going to be on here for a little while, so we've got a spongy kind of gym mat underneath us, but if you've got a yoga mat, rolled up towel, anything like that, especially if you're doing it on a hard surface, you want to make sure you can eliminate the discomfort level as much as possible. You want to feel like you can sit in that V-sit for a while. 20 seconds. Last 10. And that is time. All right, guys, that's the move section done. Have a little bit of recovery time, and then we're gonna go through some cool down stretches next. Alrighty guys, so now that all the hard stuff is done, we're gonna get into a couple of drills just to cool things down, loosen the body up. So the first one is what we call the big circle. We're gonna do this for 1 minute. So it's a wide stance, starting above the head there, and then we are basically, as the name suggests, just drawing a really big circle. So looking at changing direction each time, or doing a couple one way, a couple the other way just to even it up, but looking at really getting into hamstrings, groin. You should get a little bit of like shoulders, back, lats, everything as well. So just try and make the circle as big as possible. Nice, slow circles. And over time, what we should see is that the stance can get a little wider, a little wider, a little wider. We start to come down almost into sort of a Cossack squat position. You can sort of bend the knees, you come down to the corner, get down nice and low. You can see Em's just kind of gliding the fingertips along the ground, which is ultimately the depth we want to be able to get down to. At the top, you can also feel free to kind of lean back, open up the abs a little bit, stretch out through that front line there. Nice and slow. All right, so that's drill one. The second one is a lying glute stretch. So she's going to go on her back, hook one leg up on top of the other, and then we're just going to grab onto, and then grab it onto that left leg. So she's just drawing that in. She's going to allow herself to kind of relax back into it. So her right leg is the one that we're stretching at the moment. And that's just getting into that hip and that glute there. You might even get a little bit of low back if you're quite tight through there. You'll feel that crank up a little bit. So just hanging out on that. We'll do 45 seconds on each side. Five more seconds. And switching sides. So she's got just the edge of her ankle on there, so we don't want to go too high up on the leg. We want to try and create as much angle as we can. A couple things you can play around with, guys, if you want to actually press down on that knee, just to kind of create a little bit more rotation at the hip. And for some of you, it might feel really tight. You might not even have to grab and hold onto the leg. You might even just crossing the leg over might be enough of a stretch for you. For some of you, on the flip side of it, if that's not enough, you can grab onto the shin and draw it in even closer. So that's up to you as to where your level is at. But we just want to allow the rest of the body to kind of sink back, draw on that stretch, and just hang out on that. Alrighty, so those are your two drills, guys. Let's see a handful of rounds on that, depending on how much time you got. Try to get as much mobility in it as you can, get the body nice and loose. Otherwise, we will catch you next time, and that's been your MOV+ workout.